Welcome, everyone, to Real Estate on the Up, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the real estate world in Orlando. I'm your host, Kyle Madorin, and on this show, we're all about pulling back the curtain with the unfiltered truth about real estate. We're not just here to sell houses. We're here to provide concierge-style service because everyone loves being treated like a VIP. This podcast is your go-to resource for transparency, integrity, and the knowledge you need to make smarter real estate decisions. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a first-time homebuyer, we've got you covered. So buckle up and get ready to move up in the world of real estate. It's time for Real Estate on the Up. Welcome back to Real Estate on the Up, where we dig into the trends, strategies, and stories driving real estate forward. I'm your host, Kyle Madorin, and today's guest is someone whose name is synonymous with real estate leadership in Northeast Florida. Joining us is Jon Singleton, founding partner of Singleton and Hopkins at Watson Realty. Jon leads the #1 team at the top brokerage in Northeast Florida, bringing decades of experience, boundless energy, and deep community roots to his work. He's a passionate advocate for local business and historic preservation, and in 2024 was recognized as the Jacksonville Chamber Downtown Small Business Leader of the Year for his impact both inside and outside the real estate world. Today, we're unpacking how recent shifts in representation requirements are changing what it means to be a listing agent, the best sources of customers and leads in 2025, what's working in marketing today from digital trends to the return of the open house. Plus, we'll explore how to build authority as a local expert, turn community service into client pipelines, and even maintain brand presence with minimal social media effort. So get ready for a conversation packed with tactical insights, grounded wisdom, and a whole lot of heart. Let's dive in and welcome Jon to the show. Here he is, Jon Singleton.
Hey, thanks so much, Kyle, for having me. This is awesome.
Great. Yeah, it's my pleasure. I appreciate your time. And this is going to be a fun conversation. Number one, because you're located outside of my local market, and it's always great to talk to an expert in another part of the state, but also because you have such a unique perspective on the business and the way that you've achieved success. So I'm really excited to learn more about it.
Yeah.
Let's start by your journey a little bit. What brought you into real estate? How did you get started in the business?
So I was military, I was Navy, and spent a bunch of time overseas. I had ended up, I did 10 years active duty, and the last part of that was at the Pentagon. And I ended up in this little niche in the Pentagon where we were putting together public-private ventures to try to help solve a family housing crisis that the Navy had. At the time, we had like 66,000 houses and 124,000 apartment units that all needed maintenance. And there's only so much money that's allocated by Congress each year to the military, and a lot of that goes toward things like aircraft carriers and, F-18s, and not a lot for air conditioner units. And so we're trying to put together this kind of complex package, which was fun. And I actually got an act of Congress extended. I didn't get an act of Congress passed. We did get an act of Congress extended, which was a huge win. But we were also dealing with 4 different properties that were, 100, 150 years old, one couple hundred years old, like where the Chief of Naval Operations, the top guy in the Navy, he's got his house at the Washington Navy Yard. And we're going through this historic preservation of that, where they were kind of going through and cataloging like 40 different coats of paint, what the paint colors were at the different times. And the vice president lives at the Naval Observatory. And so that's a historic property also. We're going through a historic, kind of renovation, preservation of that. And all I was doing, though, is like writing white papers, right? It's just, 1 page, 2 pages, with just kind of hard facts, sending those to Congress, and they'd rip them apart, and we'd have to answer new questions at like 2 a.m. in the morning. And I never actually touched a brick. And so I left active duty. We moved back to Jacksonville because my wife was from here. We had our first baby. And I don't know, I thought it was really cool what we were doing, but I actually wanted to see it. And we moved into this historic neighborhood where she had grown up, San Marco, which is right across the river from downtown Jacksonville. And I started getting into historic preservation, joined the Historic Society. And one of my friends was like, why don't you get a real estate license? I was like, oh, I could do that. And so I got a real estate license. This was late 01, early 02. And guys weren't really doing this. This was before Bravo and HGTV. And I was a helicopter pilot in the Navy. And my old squadron mates were like, so were you a housewife? I'm like, no. I think this is going to work. And my mom couldn't believe I figured out how to make a living talking to people, but Kyle, I've figured out how to make a living talking to people. It's been great. I've actually loved it. Totally fit.
You've been very successful at it. And it's a really interesting story about how that evolved from your role with the military into real estate, which seemed like a great fit, like a very natural sort of a journey for you.
Right. Yeah. No, it worked out. It worked out great. And I've got a psychology degree and I'm a combat vet. And so those, under having a fairly high EQ, right? I mean, being able to kind of understand how to people's emotions and things kind of factor into decision making. And then also, listen, we're not getting shot at. I mean, we think things are the end of the world sometimes in real estate. Look, it's not the end of the world. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And those two qualities have really been just unbelievable for me.
No, that certainly puts things in perspective. We're not dodging bullets for sure. So, no, thank you so much for your service. It's an incredible story.
A pleasure.
So, as your journey, I mean, things have changed constantly for you over the last 2 decades.
Right.
There have been many, many changes in the industry as things have evolved and new challenges have occurred. And just recently, there have been a lot of changes as well, especially with how representation works. So let's talk for a minute about that, because I know consumers have questions about that, and agents too. There are some agents who aren't comfortable with all the changes yet. So how have your duties changed since some of the settlements went in with those national cases with NAR last year? How have your duties changed and evolved since you started in the business?
Well, so real estate's in constant flux, right? I mean, I started when, 04, 05, 06 were in this huge kind of boom time. And then the bubble burst in 07, 08, we fell off the financial cliff. 9, 10, 11 were all short sales. We'd never done short sales, right? And then we started doing a lot of short sales. We started doing a lot of foreclosures. And we didn't know how to do that. And then we kind of muddled through those kind of mid-recession years, and then things were pretty good again. And then the pandemic hit, right? And so that was totally different. I was in my garage trying to figure out, okay, we got to make sure everything's online, right? I didn't have a lot of 3D walkthroughs. We got to do 3D walkthroughs. We did virtual open houses. My 17-year-old daughter was following me through houses. So we would do hey, welcome, this is a virtual open house. And so then things were crazy, right? I mean, late 2020, 21, 22 was great until suddenly we went to 7 and thought we were going to 10% interest rates. And the spigot turned off, right? Mm-hmm. And then we got the NAR lawsuit. And so honestly, the biggest difference that I see is we've always gone on listing appointments, and when you're interviewing with the seller, you're very clear you're interviewing with the seller, right? I mean, it's very clear, and they want to know, well, what do you do and what does it cost? Well, we're doing that with buyers too. Now we're doing that with buyers. Why did we never do that with buyers? I mean, buyers, we just showed up and unlocked the door, right? And so buyers had this idea, and they didn't pay us. I mean, they did, but they didn't. And so the buyers thought that all we did was showed up and unlocked the door, right? And, because Zillow gives them all the information. And so what we've realized, well, first of all, Zillow didn't take away our job, right? I mean, people still, all the information's there, but they really need someone to help them understand and process the information. And okay, so yes, we still unlock doors, but listen, here's the thing. This is what I do. This is why you should choose me. These are the services I provide, and this is what my fee is. Now we just have that conversation. It does slow things down a little bit, but why did we never do that before? I don't understand.
I think that making sure that people understand what our role is and how we can help, and really what they're getting, is terms of on the listing side, certainly, but on the buy side as well. What are we actually doing to assist? I think you're right. I think it's a positive change. I've had a chance to now see this in action since last August, and through many transactions and client communication, I don't see a downside to the way things have evolved. I think there was a lot of pessimism at first with the way things were structured, but if you're a quality agent and you can explain your value and how you can help customers achieve their goals, I don't really feel like this has impacted our business. And I've talked to a lot of top agents, and most agents feel the same, that if anything, this has maybe made it more clear about really how the agent is helping and all the benefits that are provided by having representation, which is a good thing.
Right. I do think it does favor agents that are comfortable, having that discussion. And I mean, you could say seasoned agents, but some people get it much more quickly than others. And there's certainly some seasoned agents that have kind of struggled with this, with the new, the new shift. I mean, the same thing on the, making offers side. I mean, there's a lot of folks are still calling, asking, well, what are you providing? And I'm like, well, I mean, Department of Justice clearly doesn't want me to dictate what you earn. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's negotiable.
Yeah.
And people freak out. They're like, well, I need a number. I'm like, well, what's your number? I mean, you show me your number, I'll show you mine, right? The seller is much more amenable to contributing greatly to your buyer agent compensation if you're at 105% of asking price. If you're at 85% of asking price, they're not as interested. It's just, it's fascinating. So,
have you seen that because buyers are now responsible for paying those services, they're paying their agents compensation? Have you seen any adjustment to their expectations throughout the transaction?
I have not, but then again, I've got the folks that are choosing me to represent them on the buyer side know what I bring to the table. Now, one of the things that, if you're a brand new agent, you got free time, right? And if you're a seasoned agent, ideally, if things are running smoothly, got 10, 15 listings, and we've got, a good couple handfuls in escrow right now. Just for the record, we had no closings for 9 weeks, and it was really nerve wracking. But finally, we're getting closings again, which, oh my God, it's been a rough spring. But my folks, because we've gone through and talked about the process, know that I'm available, and if I haven't answered them, I mean, all they got to do is call or text, and we can kind of resolve any things with that. You have a second for some quick math? I'm not a math guy, but you're really going to like this.
Sure.
So, say you got a $500,000 property, and you've got a buyer that wants to make an offer on a $500,000 property, and you call the listing agent, and the listing agent, I don't know, she says a lot of words, right? I don't know. They've got thoughts about like compensation or whatever, and you've got a buyer who's paying more than 20% down, right? So if you're paying more than 20% down, typically, whether you charge 2% or 3% or 4% or whatever it is on your side, right? Say the buyer's put 25% down. Well, they've got the available cash to just pay you directly. And so let's say for the sake of the argument that it's 3% is where you settle, right? And $500,000 property, the listing agent says, I don't know, something. And you don't really listen because you don't really care because you're just going to present the offer that your buyer wants you to present. Your buyer could take that 3% off that asking price instead of $15,000, right? We're talking about easy math, $500,000 property, 3% is $15,000. If your buyer pays $485,000 instead of $500,000 and pays the 3% directly to you, what they don't do is they don't end up paying commission on the commission, right? And so your buyer ends up saving a little bit of money because that $15,000 they're not paying an extra $450. It's not much, but they're saving $450. They're also starting off with a lower cost basis, which means a lower property tax basis. Right. And so they end up saving, over the course of the next few years, I mean, literally like, $1,000. I mean, it saves them money to do that directly. Now, the seller also isn't paying the listing agent commission on the commission. They're also not, that $15,000, they're not paying deed stamps on that. They're not paying title insurance on that. And so they save money too. Now, you may or may not be where they were thinking, maybe they weren't going to offer 3 and whatever, but it takes that off the table because then your conversation with the listing agent, to the seller is, well, look, you're paying 0. I mean, this is our price. Do you like it or do you don't? And we've had great luck with that.
That's great. I love that perspective. I think that's amazing.
We do have to do the math for people because people are like, I don't understand. I'm like, well, you're paying nothing. Like, well, but don't worry about it. But present it to them that they're also saving, $1,250 or whatever it is. Because honestly, that not paying the commission on the commission, not paying the deed stamps, not paying the title insurance is a win for the seller. So
when you dissect it like that, it makes perfect sense. Yeah. I think that's brilliant. One of the things that we found from a listing perspective as well is not coming out and volunteering a set compensation on the buy side. So Yeah, instead of saying, when people call and ask, which obviously it's not in MLS, it's not public anymore if there is any compensation being offered, but instead of setting compensation level with the seller, typically the way that we handle that now is the seller's open to paying compensation if the offer makes sense. They understand that many times that's going to be requested, and they want to examine the offer as a whole. They want to look at the whole package. So when you make an offer, submit a request for the compensation you're seeking. If we can make the numbers work, seller's comfortable with that.
Exactly.
If not, they'll counter it.
Yeah, and we simply say it's negotiable.
Right.
And,
absolutely.
Which freaks people out. It's funny.
I know,
like,
it does.
What do you mean?
Does.
I'm like, well, again, the Department of Justice doesn't want me to dictate what you're earning. I mean,
Right.
it kind of makes sense.
I think it makes perfect sense. Once you put it into place and you see how it actually works, It works really well that way. But it does freak people out because they're like, well, wait a minute, I don't know what I'm going to be making. I don't know what the numbers say. But that's the way things have gone. And I think that there's a lot of benefits to buyers and sellers as a result of this. I think that, at first there was so much negativity surrounding it, but as it's gone into practice, I think that it's worked pretty well.
I agree. Well, and just to kind of more on that, we never, certain markets, I think we're in a market right now where people are certainly asking for some sort of closing cost credit.
Yep.
And there's a little bit less of that because now we're negotiating compensation simultaneously. But, your FHA buyer's agents never came to you initially and said, oh, listen, by the way, we've got an offer coming, but they are asking for 4% or 6% or whatever toward closing costs. They would just throw that at you, right? And that's on top of their commission. So we never pre-negotiated that either. And so it's just another, it's another iteration of it. But we've always had 9 or 10 different things we negotiate. Okay, now maybe it's 11. I don't know, but it's fine if you are comfortable negotiating. And if you're not, you need to take some classes.
Right. Yeah. So with all these changes, obviously one of the other things that definitely has evolved in the industry is how we come as agents to connect with customers. And everyone has their own sources of lead generation. But as technology changes and as the marketplace changes, so do the sources of where people generally come from and how agents connect with them. So for you in your business, what are your best sources of lead generation, best sources of customers now in 2025?
Yeah, so for us, it's always been community service. And I've been working with Susan Hopkins, my business partner, for 12 years. And we first started, we were a hybrid team formally several years ago. And then we actually went to a 50-50 model about 2 years ago. And just recently, we'd been the Singleton team. And just recently, she's not a Singleton. We're not married to each other. We live in different counties, actually. But that Singleton and Hopkins really, is kind of at a deference to her position. But we have both been really involved in a lot of community stuff, non-realtor related things. And that's kind of changed. It's evolved over time. I've been active with the chamber for a long time, but also San Marco preservation. I was San Marco's my little niche historic neighborhood. Was on the board for 20 years. Was president about a decade ago. I had been doing a lot of things that that periodically generate local article in the local press. Now how people interact with the press. We don't get the hard copy paper delivered to our door anymore. There's other ways, and it may be through Instagram or something else. But you need some sort of external validation on what you're doing. And that certainly helps when there's, you get a shout out from someone else in the industry or in the community. I tell you, honestly, the best source that I've ever had nothing to do with real estate. My son was going into Boy Scouts. I had actually... he was 4 and his sister was 2, and I got called up and went to Afghanistan for a year. I came back, they were 4 and 6, and he was starting first grade and he was going into Scouts. And he didn't want to do anything without me around because we were, trying to reestablish our relationship because, you're gone for a year out of your 6-year-old's life. And, that's weird. And also he was a little timid at the time. He's now 6'6" and 240 pounds, and he's trying to get on with the Jacksonville Fire Department. He's not timid now. But at the time, it was my wife was like, well, I guess you're going to go with him to Cub Scouts. I'm like, absolutely. And so we dug in. And then I spent the next 18 years kind of with him, and then as the den leader, and then I was the pack leader, and then he transitioned into Boy Scouts, and I was an assistant. scoutmaster and then was committee chair of, and spent a lot of time with a lot of families, with my son, because I'm a dad, but then with a lot of other families. And then I started doing, combat vets. I'm a little type A and kind of an adrenaline junkie. And so they're like, hey, we're doing class 4 and class 5 rapids. You want to come? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Or we're, hiking 75 miles through the Rockies. You want to go? And I'm like, that sounds cool. And training in Florida, we don't have a whole lot of elevation. But so, I had families who were saying, look, here's my son, please take care of him, right? And when you start to earn trust and demonstrate integrity by doing things that, listen, had nothing to do with real estate, right? But you hand me your son for safekeeping, particularly, Boy Scouts had been through a scandal like over the last 20 years. And, and to still be someone who folks trust, greatly honored and really appreciative of that. But the keys to the house, Kyle, are nothing after that. I can't tell you how many scout families I've helped with, selling homes and buying other. That has been an unbelievable boon to my business. But, also, we've always had people, they're like, oh, I don't want to sell a house on my street, or I don't want to work with people at my church because, what if it goes wrong? Well, I've kind of gone the opposite way. And, man, I've dug in, and there's people I see all the time, and I have absolutely helped them transition their home. And, if things go badly, it's a problem. I don't want to get attacked in the Starbucks or whatever, destroying someone's life. And I've kind of taken that to heart, and I've done the job that has kind of, guaranteed that I'm not. I want people to be glad to see me, right?
Right.
And so, anyway, that's been my big secret. Honestly, it was Boy Scouts, but it could be anything. It could be, coaching your daughter's soccer team, whatever. Just
that community service element. Yeah, that's incredible. And it does create these strong bonds of trust. And people get a chance to see who you are, what you're about, your personality,
right.
And then realize, you know what? That's the type of person we'd love to work with on this deal, right. Rather than just going into a listing consultation, having never met them before, never talked to them. It's almost like a warm introduction because you've had this time to build rapport.
Right. It is a warm introduction, but don't lose your mind on the soccer pitch also, right?
Right.
Because you can, that can go against you too, but, just realize you want to be someone who people want to talk to.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I know that you've also done a lot of work with open houses over the years. Is that still something that you do a lot of on your listings?
A lot more now, actually, since the August 17th, change with everything and the way we do things. What's really interesting is that there's a lot of buyers that have trust issues, right? And there's a lot of realtors that haven't done that work and gotten that word out to develop that trust. And so there's a lot of buyers that are out there that are like, look, you know what? I don't want to call. I don't want to sign anything. I don't want to do anything. I'm just going to wait for the open house. And so now when we put a property on the market, we used to do an open house like around week 3 because we're trying to boost the traffic because we're not getting enough traffic. Now I really think we need to do that week 1, at least by week 2, because there's a lot of buyers that are waiting on the sidelines, waiting for that open house. Now, Are they going to share their contact info with us? Maybe, right? We still got to earn that. And there's some people that you're just not going to break through. It's fine. But that open house is really important for a lot of buyers because they're waiting for that. So.
Definitely. Everyone seems to be on the websites and apps and waiting for those new listings to hit. So I think you're right. If you do it when the listing's fresh, it makes a big impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So during your open houses then, is there anything unique that you do that you feel helps turn those people who walk through that door into potential customers for you and your team?
So Tom Ferry's got this whole thing, and just to totally shamelessly steal it from him because this is real estate, so plagiarism is okay, right? Well, to a certain extent. You can plagiarize, the ideas and strategies, right? He's got this whole thing that we've kind of taken to heart. We can't do this all the time, but if you've got like a lender partner, or if you've got even someone who's in insurance or some other kind of, or maybe like an interior designer, renovator, or just whatever kind of fits for the property, have them come to the open house with you. And when I can be at an open house greet people at the door, say, hey, thank you so much for coming. The sellers have really, taken a lot of effort to try to make sure that this is a great open house, getting everything ready. My name is John. Let me know if you have any questions. If you would, I'm going to call you on Monday just to get some feedback, just to let the sellers know really, how their efforts have paid off. But if you would go, Julie Henry's sitting back there, and she's with First Federal Bank, is one of our partner lenders, and she's just registering people when they come in. If you wouldn't mind, go and register with her as you start the tour of the house, and then let me know what questions you've got. And Julie can answer any questions that you might have about how VA or FHA or what the interest rates are today or what kind of different products we've got, if you have any questions about that. But just go and register with her, and then we'll catch up with you in a few minutes. Every step they take toward Julie is a commitment that they're going to actually sign that registration, and maybe they give contact information, maybe they don't. But what we're finding is even when people say, oh, I've got an agent with Compass or with Redfin or with whatever, right? A lot of times it's like when you're going through a clothing store and people are like, can I help you? And you're like, I'm just looking. Sometimes they call you later. I mean, they just said something, they just gave a name. But sometimes they are not truly committed to whatever. It's just kind of a block. But when I'm not taking the registration, it's Julie, and she seems nice, right? And there's cookies, and they walk to her and they're like, oh, look, we can get some iced tea or lemonade or something afterwards. It lowers the barriers. They lower their defenses because we're just trying to have a conversation. Because sometimes you find there's potential customers out there and you don't click, right? You've had those conversations where you're talking with someone and you're like, wow, this is really, truly
personality is not a match, or yep. It happens.
You know what? Don't work with them. Right. They're not going to call you. You're not going to call them. You're going to call them on Monday like you promised. And so when you call on Monday like you promised, you say, hey, Susie, I'm calling you. This is John from the open house on Saturday from 1819 Landon Avenue. I'm calling you like I promised. Right. But I don't know. Sometimes you'll break through that. Sometimes you won't. It doesn't matter. I like to refer to that as potential clients deselecting themselves. You want to work with the people that you like and you connect with, not the ones you don't.
That's really important to remember too, because as agents, we want everyone to love us, right? We're very lovable. We're great people.
They won't.
It's frustrating when we think someone doesn't. So no, that's a very, very good point. Yeah. I know also you've done a really good job establishing brand presence on social media, but without having to dedicate, hours and hours and hours a day to doing it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you've done on social media and kind of what your strategy is there.
Well, I'll tell you, it's kind of like making phone calls. What are we supposed to make 50 phone calls a week or something, which is crushing, right? And people are like, well, when's the best time to do it? It's kind of like the best time to post. I think the best time to make a phone call is when you are thinking, I'm going to make a phone call, right? Maybe they answer, maybe they don't, right? I think the best time to post is when you're ready to make the post. I'm a heavy user of social media. I'm not a heavy consumer. I really probably should spend more time like looking through Facebook to see who got married and who's got babies and all this stuff. And I miss things, which is unfortunate. Anyway, usually I'll catch up and it's okay. But I do post fairly frequently. I did not post a lot over the last couple months. And Kyle, you're like, why didn't you? I wasn't feeling it. I don't know how your April was. My April was, we closed 0 in April. No, we did 30 million last year. Okay.
Yeah.
Very thankful for that. I hadn't had a 0 month since November 22. Not that anyone's keeping track of that.
It's been a weird market. Yeah.
God. And we had a lot of closings and a big one slipped and we had several cancellations. We had a bunch of stuff, and I was kind of down. I'll tell you, April, May, finally we had some closings this week, and we had a couple closings our last couple. Anyway, I kind of feel like I just paid some bills today, right? Yeah. My mortgage, it's the 13th. Okay, it's not late until but seriously, I'm a top whatever, right? And dude, it's been a struggle.
Yeah.
And I think that if you call people and you're kind of in a bad mood, that's not a good time to call people. And I kind of feel the same way about a post. The tone's just not right. And we've got, I don't know, I mean, our main account, we've got 1,050 posts, something like that. We've got 1,500 followers. I'm always like, people have like 150,000 followers and, like you, right? And half the time I look and I'm like, oh, she was an NFL cheerleader. Okay. I was not, right? There's like nothing I can do. Anyway, whatever, it's fine. But we post a lot, and what we see, and we post a lot of different things, and some of it's super professional and some of it's super amateur, and then a lot of it's kind of in the middle. And a lot of that, will generate, either it's more organic or more non-organic and whatever. And we just keep that rolling, right? And it does work a lot better if you post when you have time, when you're in a good mood. Like Saturday mornings work a lot, for that for me. But I don't know. I mean, the trend line keeps going up, and people keep calling us, so it's working.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, the presence out there, just so people see a little bit more about, like, behind the curtain, what you're all about, what from a business perspective, but also personally. Real estate is a very interesting, residential real estate is a very interesting business because it's very personal, very emotional, much different than the commercial end.
Right. Well, and that's where, I mean, honestly, having that degree in psychology helps a lot. I spent a lot of time with people. I spent a lot of time with a lot of different kind of people. So I was 4 years off U.S. soil, and so how do you interact? How do you develop commonality? Is that constant thing? And if you learn how to just be very comfortable in talking with people, and sometimes about complicated subjects like property tax portability, right? And how do you make that like fun and interesting? I mean, you got to practice, right?
Absolutely, you do. But I love your perspective. It's very grounded. It's filled with empathy. And so you really identify with your customers. And I love that. You've made this a people business for you and your team. And I honestly think with all the changes happening, all the new technology and things, it's the people who connect the best with customers who I think will continue to be incredibly successful in the industry. Right. And certainly you're one of those agents.
Well, so the main reason for that, right? So everything changed, like algorithms changed, like Zillow changed how it's functioning and doing things. And so if you pay for leads, right? I mean, whatever platform, that's a funnel, right? It's a business funnel. Yep. You don't own that funnel, Kyle. You're renting that funnel. So if you if you get out there, if you meet a lot of people, if you develop trust, if you develop credibility, particularly through external validation, if you do that consistently over time, you're building your own funnel, right? And so my funnel, I own my funnel. Now, it's not always full, right? I mean, some of that's based on market and the world and all geopolitical events, but it's not a funnel that no one can change the algorithm on my funnel because I own it. I built it, right? You don't rent it.
Right. It's your baby. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Well, Jon, I know that there's a lot of people watching and listening who probably have questions for you because you have such a great perspective and you're such an expert in your area. What would be the best way for people to reach out to you if they want to learn more and connect with you?
Well, I mean, social media and the website are obviously the easy ones. Jon Singleton, you can Google Jon Singleton. It's just Jon. There's a baseball player that he'll probably come up first. I'm, not Major League Baseball, but we're Singleton and Hopkins on every social media platform and singletonandhopkins.com. And we'll pop up on most of those. A lot of folks will talk to you about like SEO, and you want like anyone who's looking for, house hunting Jacksonville that you want to pop up first. We're not, we've got a much more quality-based and quantity-based business. We really like it when people come to me that are like, oh gosh, we've heard about you and you've got a great reputation. Not, you came up first in Google. Although I think we rank, I don't know. I don't even know. It doesn't matter. The phone rings, plenty. But Singleton and Hopkins, best way to find us.
I'm sure with your success and your visibility, you will pop up in those searches pretty high. So everyone who's watching, listening, if you need any assistance in the Jacksonville or North Florida area, Jon Singleton and his team are amazing. Yeah. So Singleton and Hopkins, Watson Realty. Jon, thank you so much for your time today. Your expertise is overwhelming. And I really enjoyed chatting with you and learning about your approach to the industry. I think it's fantastic.
Hey, I appreciate it. You're right, man. That 30 minutes goes fast, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
A lot of fun.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we hope to catch you next time on Real Estate on the Up. Take care.
Okay. See you.
As we conclude another eye-opening episode of Real Estate on the Up, I want to express my appreciation for joining us. Thank you for being a valuable part of the Real Estate on the Up community. Your time and engagement mean the world, so make sure you subscribe and leave a review. Your real estate goals are my priority, and my team and I are here to provide the personalized attention and service that have earned us high recognition. If you have questions, need guidance, or are ready to make a move, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm just a message away. I'm Kyle Madorin, one of Rate My Agent's top 100 in the United States, signing off. Until next time, take care and make those real estate dreams a reality.